that in a little bit here, but that's where somebody's affected by that. We tried to send out notifications to let them know that this meeting is happening and what the effect would be. And we have received a number of public comments, and so those comments are summarized in the packet that you received, and also we've prepared a suggested motion for amendments that's also in the commission packet, and we'll go into that suggested motion later on. The general plan, this draft consists of the introduction, the table of contents, normal stuff. Also an index of topics. We put the index at the beginning so that people will know it's there and can go right to the topic they want to find. It hopefully will help make it be a more useful and usable document to people. And also the statements of vision and values, the general topics that I discussed earlier, that goes at the beginning of the general plan as well. And then we've got a list of the 12 elements in the general plan. The ones shown in red here are the ones that are required by state law, and the rest are ones that we've elected to add as well. So just running through these, again, we've discussed this at our discussion sessions before, but land use, this is about each one of these elements have one overarching goal. And for each goal, there are a number of objectives on how we would want to go about achieving that. Again, this is a general plan. These aren't all super specific, but they do support specific actions that the city can take in the future. For instance, goal number 1 in land use is just to provide for a variety of land uses, optimal quantities and locations, putting the right location, having the right amount of different types of land uses in logical locations. And the objectives for doing that are to designate areas for different land uses, encouraging mixed use residential and commercial areas, and also to distinguish between neighborhood commercial and highway commercial. That distinction is something that isn't in the general plan right now. Right now we have a general commercial designation that covers areas that are zoned C1 and C2, both light commercial and heavier commercial. The idea here is to differentiate that in the general plan to make it agree with the zoning that's there already. And so when we look at the map for this, again, the GC, general commercial to neighborhood commercial and highway commercial. In this map, the darker red is the highway commercial, which would be the heavier commercial types of uses, your highway types of uses, very auto-centric, big box stores, things like that. Whereas the neighborhood commercial is your smaller neighborhood stores, retailers, offices, and also mixed in with that would be possible multifamily development, again, for mixed-use development that the plan would encourage here. The PSP designation, which is public and semi-public designations, we would divide that into two, which is community facility and open space. Community facility would be for developed community-owned facilities like schools, city halls, treatment plants, things like that, whereas the open space would be the natural areas, the undeveloped, and the areas that would not be developed in the future. So this map shows in the red circle, one of the changes that we're proposing here is at the end of Willard Drive, which is just on the top of Willard Street before it drops down into Old Town. There's some land up there that we're proposing a PLD, a planned development type of designation, which would allow for someone to come in with a planned area development to develop that at different densities. Also, towards the center of town at 6th Place in Aspen, There's an area that's designated right now as general commercial. It's technically grown up as more of a light industrial area with contractors' yards and some manufacturing, things like that in there. So we're proposing to designate that as light impact industrial, which would be a little more appropriate to the types of uses that have grown up in there. Very low density residential and medium density residential exists in little pockets near Birch and Main, and we're proposing, since that's surrounded by commercial and also by high-density residential, that that go to high-density residential as well. Area up Mingus Avenue, kind of in the foothills, an area that's currently designated for planned development. This would be designated for very low residential development, say acre lot type of uses there. The idea here is because that is served entirely by Mingus Avenue, which is a two-lane road, adding high densities in there could create problems on that road. We do have, in the next section in the growth areas, a note in there that says if other roadways become available to service that area, then it could be considered for a PLD designation. Up in the Spring Creek Ranch area, currently it has no designation since it was recently annexed. We're proposing a very low density residential matching the existing 2-acre lot zoning on there, and also proposing a PLD planned area for an area west of the creek that may be proposed for a resort type of use in the future. And at the Immaculate Conception Church, which is just off of this particular map, it's right now designated as PSP, public, semi-public. We would propose to take that to high-density residential, since the church has been discussing with us plans for residential in that area. And finally, all the way along the Highway 89, bypass area, back in the day, they zoned this and put land use designations based on an arbitrary distance from the road, 250 feet or 300 feet, something like that, which would be a strict commercial type of zoning. That, in theory, is nice, but it didn't align with the lot lines in many cases. So we have a lot of parcels that have split designations and split zones. Creates a real problem when somebody comes in and says, hey, what does the zoning say for this land? We say, which zoning? It's really an awkward situation. So we're proposing to clean that up a little bit, make the boundaries of the land use designations match lot lines as much as we possibly can. And that's one of the situations where, for instance, we sent out the notifications to people. We're saying that, yeah, we're proposing designations change on your property, but it would match the property line, so your property would be all in one designation instead of split between two. The second element, growth areas. This is something that's required by the state for us to look at the areas that are prone to growth. And the idea here is to manage sustainable growth by ensuring that the needed housing and commercial uses can be built in Cottonwood's remaining developable land. So we identified the largest pieces of still undeveloped land in the city, and in this chapter, in this element, we developed some general land use visions for each one of these areas. So the idea here is to plan the general character of each of the development on each of these large undeveloped parcels, incentivize infill development, and that's the green area that's shown on this map. This is the area that is served by the most infrastructure in the city. You've already got the roads, you've already got the water lines, you've already got the wastewater service in this area, and this is an area that we would encourage infill development both on a large scale and small scale. Small lots coming in for developments, kind of like one of the items we're going to see later on tonight. So that's in here, and also to set annexation policy, which is generally make sure that if you're going to annex, it's beneficial to the city and doesn't create financial hardships later on in the future. All of these growth areas are inside the city limits except for growth area 12, which is the big 10 square mile state trust parcel out here. Just some guidelines on that in this chapter as well. Third chapter is character and economy. This element is about preserving and celebrating Cottonwood's unique character and identity while helping the economy thrive. So this takes economic development and community character and mashes it together because they are very dependent on each other. You really can't have one without the other. So the idea here is to attract and retain businesses. Another objective is to help locally owned businesses, promoting tourism, but avoiding over-tourism, because tourism does benefit our small, independent, locally owned businesses, but we got comment after comment on avoiding over-tourism to avoid, situations that other cities have gotten into and kind of damages the town character. So we would retain the character in Old Town, preserve historic areas and archaeological resources, and to pursue broadband as part of the economic development strategy. Number 4, housing. Big issue with our comments during the vision and values sessions, working towards making housing available and affordable to everybody who wants to live in Cottonwood. The objectives here are allowing flexibility in development standards, especially in infill areas, incentivizing housing that's affordable for low and moderate incomes, coordinating with groups to provide a continuum of housing, continuum being from help for homelessness to all the way up through providing for homeownership. Considering ADUs, accessory dwelling units, that's something that we don't really have a provision for right now. There isn't anything specific in this plan about how that would work, but this is a general objective that would support discussing that and see how it would work so we could make it compatible with neighborhoods. Also, neighborhood preservation and discouraging, to the extent the city can, short-term rentals. Cost of development, pretty simple here. Again, incentivizing infill development. That keeps costs down because you don't have to extend sewer lines, roads out into the hinterlands. When you do it infill, the infrastructure is already there. And ensuring that development costs are fair but not excessive. This one talks about corridors. We've gone over this, the 3 different types of corridors that are recognized here. And the idea here is to plan corridors to consider both land use and transportation, because corridors aren't just the street. It's the street plus the sidewalk plus the lighting plus the parking plus the buildings and the landscaping. It's everything. So the idea is to comprehensively look at those corridors as we plan them. Circulation, this is the plan for connectivity. That's the big word that we've got here, is to making sure things connect together. Design, build, and operate Cottonwood's transportation system to allow safe and efficient circulation for all modes of travel. So all modes are represented in the circulation plan here. It's not, we don't have a separate vehicular plan, a separate bike plan, a separate trails plan. It's all together right here, so you can see how it works together, how it all connects. So prioritize connectivity, making sure that when we do put in improvements, we connect them together, and design roadways appropriate to the context, again, of the corridors we were just talking about, and make them designed per current best practices. The circulation plan map is included in this element, and it includes future collector roadways with new development. The future collectors are the ones that are shown in red, and these would be built as part of larger developments, both on private land and on state-owned land right now as it gets developed. State trust land is there to be developed. It's not a public open space. It's there for the benefit of the beneficiaries of the trust. So the plan is to develop those state trust lands someday, and that would include parcels near the Mingus Avenue and 89A intersection, and also to the west of 260 around Goddard Road. So to service those developments, we would propose connections from, in this case, from 260 over to Camino Real, just to make that connection and also provide some connection over to the west side here. Future arterial roadway, future highway, that's the one area right here. Something in the ADOT plan is to connect First Street and extend it over to connect with 89A to take some of the pressure off of the bottleneck at 260 and 89A. That's something that's a multi-jurisdictional issue. It's not just in the city. It would be an ADOT project, but it's something that and it's in the ADOT plan. It's something that we're suggesting that gets put in the city plan as well, even though it's going to be an ADOT project. Also, there's locations on here for future roundabout and signal study. You can see, for example, the planned roundabout here at 10th and Main Street. That's shown on here as planned, and also some future locations like Main and Willard. There may be a possibility for some sort of a small roundabout there, and maybe a connection into Old Town with some parking area up there. And we'll get into that in a minute too. This also shows proposed bike lanes and bike routes. The small blue lines on here are existing bike lanes that are striped. The solid, thicker blue lines are proposed bike lanes, again striped. The dashed lines that are shown here would be bike routes, and those would be not striped. Those would be just designated as bike routes. And those are on the quieter streets where cars and bikes can share the road a lot easier. Also proposed here are some future sidewalks. Again, the idea is connectivity, where we have gaps in sidewalks, close those gaps, and also trails. Trails can be more informal sidewalks and can also provide connections as well. And the proposed trails on here are the solid green lines. So we're proposing a trail. This has been planned for a while from Old Town, from the Balboa Street area up the ravine, crossing 89A, and connecting in with the existing blowout trail that we've been working on in the recent years. We've also got some existing trails shown in the light green areas, and also a continuation of the Riverfront Park Loop Trail going around the park. Airport, we have an element devoted entirely to the airport. The idea here is that to operate the airport to be a beneficial community asset. And we've got some objectives, and some of these came about through the public hearing process, public meeting process we had at the vision and values stage. So objectives here would include looking at incentivizing pilots to follow requested noise abatement practices, also seeking agreements with flight schools to limit the number of aircraft and the hours of training flights, explore the costs and benefits of implementing a user fee system, and work with flight schools and other jurisdictions to plan and develop alternative landing strips. The city has little to no actual jurisdiction over air travel, but that's the FAA's purview, but the city can work with other groups, work with flight schools to try and get some agreements going. Environmental planning, this is conserving natural resources and protecting environmental quality. The objectives here are requiring riparian buffers and stormwater detention, using low water use trees in city projects, dust control, and retaining dark sky measures. Water resources. big goal here, continue to provide a secure and reliable supply of safe drinking water for Cottonwood's current and future population. The objectives toward that are to regularly upgrade and maintain water distribution systems throughout the city, pursue surface water rights, make sure we have the legal rights, and remain involved in the statewide adjudication process that's going on, and also to maintain our strong water conservation program. Number 11 is the open space and recreation. The idea here, the overall goal is to offer a rich variety of recreational and cultural opportunities. Objectives toward that are helping other agencies preserve natural open space and plan regional recreation. Other agencies, of course, would be national forests and state parks. And also connect our downtown area and other areas with the public lands through trails, and also explore better connections between Old Town and the parks, as well as maintain the existing facilities that we have. And finally, the health and safety element to this. Goal 12 is to protect community health and safety through effective education, prevention, and response. Objectives toward that are improving facilities and technology for the police and fire departments, enhancing our existing crime and fire prevention programs, enforcing building and property maintenance codes that would ensure safe housing as well as preserve neighborhoods and prevent decline, and also to regularly analyze roadway crashes, identify needed improvements. What could make things safer? When something happens, can we go in and identify these things on a regular basis and say, what can be changed from the city's standpoint? So those are the elements, just running through them. They've been online for several weeks now, since October 3rd. Hopefully everybody's had a chance to go through them in detail. We've gone through them in detail, and we found some typos and things that could be made clearer. We've also had some input from city staff and citizens and property owners on things that could be changed. So we're proposing some new things that could be added in amendments to the October 3rd draft, and that would include a master plan for Old Town parking and streetscape enhancement, and also would include a regional study on a Western Loop road connector, something that would support us working with other jurisdictions. The city would work with the county, National Forest, even town of Clarkdale, whoever may be interested, to find out if there's interest in this project, if it's viable, if it's something that would be beneficial, and if so, do a study on that and find an alignment. So right now it's not on the map because there's no alignment for it, and we're not sure that it's going to be something that is going to be beneficial to everybody. So we're proposing a regional study on that. And also some changes to the maps, and I'll run through those real quick here too. So changes from the October 3rd draft. So southwest of the airport, the area that just got circled there, that was proposed to go to very low density residential. We received a comment from the property owner, would rather keep that as a low density residential the way it is right now. So we're proposing to do that. At the northeast corner of 89A and 6th Street, that's the new hotel, the new Spring Hill Suites there. That has been designated as industrial for a long time. We thought it might make sense to actually designate that as highway commercial. It seems a little more appropriate. And also let's see what's next. Not too far from there, at the northwest corner of 6th Street and Cottonwood Street, there's a office complex there that somehow got designated as low density residential. Again, something that we think is probably more appropriately designated as neighborhood commercial, since neighborhood commercial types of uses are actually in that location. Also, the ADOT office, the MVD office on 12th Street, we had proposed going to community facilities. we would propose to leave that now as highway commercial, just in case they move. It doesn't have to get changed later on. It's an appropriate place for the highway commercial as well as the surrounding areas. Also, up on 15th Street near Main and Mingus, these two half blocks here, those right now are zoned C1. Those whole blocks are zoned C1, but the back half facing 15th Street is not designated as commercial or high-density residential. It was designated as low-density residential. Again, to reflect existing conditions, we're proposing that get changed to high-density residential to encourage high-density residential uses, which are allowed outright in the C1 zone. And also, up off of Bill Gray Road, the very northeast section off of Highway 89 and Bill Gray, there's a small piece of city property up there that we would propose to designate for community facilities as opposed to the existing or the adjacent PLD proposal. On the circulation plan and the open space recreation plan, we're proposing some changes to the October draft, and showing that in this area off of West Mingus, instead of showing exact trail alignments, we're proposing an asterisk like we did on the state land to say that we don't know exactly where those trails are going to go, but there will be trails with future development. Also, there are some new alignments to trails that the Prescott National Forest has put together. So we're showing those new alignments on here as well. And that occurs down south of Daniel Bright School and also over in the Skidmore area off of Prairie. They're proposing a lot of interesting trails out there. So we're putting those on the map too. We're proposing to add those to the map. And also down off of Ogden Ranch Road, we're proposing a connection, some sort of a connection with a shared use path that goes from Ogden Ranch Road to Western Drive. That would serve the purpose of getting bicyclists off of Ogden Ranch Road that want to cross Highway 260 at that non-signalized high-speed intersection there at Ogden Ranch Road and take them instead up to Western Drive where they can cross at a signal. So we would be working with the Forest Service and a little piece of state land there to make something like that happen as well. Again, it's a long-term thing, but if you don't put it on the plan, it may not happen. So that's the idea here. And in addition to the list of 25 suggested amendments that we put in your packet, there are some other issues that we might want to discuss later on after we hear from the public. There was some talk about that growth projection in Objective 1.1, where it says plan for 1,600 people. Maybe we want to word that to plan for more than 1,600 people if we want to, or 1,600 people by the year 2040, if we want to be a little more aggressive in planning for future growth. Also, there's a policy on gated communities, Objective 112. We've had a few comments on that, and we put that in there because in the past, the city has kind of discouraged gated communities as not being a Cottonwood thing, but that may not be the issue right now. So this is the time to kind of make that policy, either keep that in or take it out. Also, we've had a request from the public on East Mingus Avenue, location just east of Main Street, the area that's designated for medium density residential right now, proposal to designate that as neighborhood commercial and possibly extend commercial zoning, which would allow for commercial zoning to be extended further east all the way towards 11th Street. That's something that either could be added to the plan right now, or if and when that applicant wants to put together a rezoning application, they can submit that along with the general plan amendment application, so the Planning and Zoning Commission could review that in a little more detail at that point. But just putting this on your radar screen in case the Commission wanted to discuss that now. And also, any other amendments can be added with additional motions after the big one for the 25 that we're suggesting. So the next steps is tonight, December 18th, we would have the public hearing, hear from the public on this, and then make motions, have a discussion, make motions to amend the draft, and then, as I say, possibly make a vote on the recommendation to council for the new update of the general plan. Once the Planning and Zoning Commission has made a recommendation, we would publish a new Planning and Zoning Commission recommended draft version, replacing the old October 3rd version, and that would be available for review by the public and then onto the City Council in 2024. They would have their public hearings, they would offer their amendments, and then vote to adopt. And then the final step, if they adopt a plan, it would have to go to the voters later in the year for ratification. So that's it for my presentation. Right now, again, it's time to hear from the public, and after that, I can read the 25 motion, or the 25 item motion into the record for you. If anybody wants to make a motion on that amendment, and again, additional amendments after that as well. Any questions on all this?
Thank you so much, Gary. I'm going to take just a few moments and have the commissioners ask any questions for staff that they have before we open the floor to the public. And just as a heads up for all the commissioner members present, we do have additional services with the city here this evening to answer questions. So we have police, fire, utilities, economic development, and Parks and Rec representatives here with us this evening. So if you have any questions that are pertinent to their areas, please feel free to ask them. I will start with Jim. Commissioner Glasscott, do you have any questions for staff? All right. Commissioner DeVernay, do you have any questions?
No question.
Commissioner Kling on Zoom, do you have any questions? Yes? Commissioner Kling, just so that you know, we could hear you speaking, but it wasn't broadcast into the room. So I'm going to ask staff, if possible, to summarize your question.
I think the question had to do with drainage, specifically in the Skidmore area. That's an area that's partly in the county, partly in the city, and a lot of these drainage issues are kind of overlapping between the two. We've got, again, this is a general plan that supports specific actions later on without being real specific about them. We do have Objective 9.2 that says require stormwater detention systems that are adequate to prevent first flush pollution from reaching the Verde River and its tributaries. This is pretty broad, pretty general. It's something that we do work on with the county regularly. We do have representatives from engineering here to to talk about any specifics on that. But again, this is a general plan level. It's not going into specific areas and saying these are areas that we're absolutely going to do. We do have a master drainage plan that we've been following to identify important projects that need to be done. So, yes.
Yeah, if I recall, you had said one of the issues was you didn't have anyone to monitor the drainage areas. That's where a lot of the flooding would happen. Like no one could go there and make sure they were cleared out, clean them out, and whatnot.
This might be a good time to bring our engineer up.
Yeah. Thank you. Please introduce yourself for the record.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Commission. My name is James Bramble. I'm the city engineer, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have regarding drainage or maintenance of drainage structures.
Commissioner Glasscott, could you repeat your question? And also, over on the Zoom, can you please just make sure that Commissioner Kling doesn't have further questions?
Yes, I think it was brought to our attention last time that there was understaffing or something about being able to maintain the drainage areas, and that's what was problematic.
I believe what you're referring to is that we did not have staff to inspect the detention systems that were installed by developers. And that is no longer the case. We have a full-time stormwater specialist that is actively going through the city, through industrial and commercial areas, documenting any deficiencies and sending out notice to those property owners.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Was there anything from Commissioner Kling? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I would call your attention to Objective 12.8, which is probably a little more directly involved with this. It's the last page, and it says, ensure that development regulations prevent construction that may create flood hazard for home and businesses, and that runoff adjacent to land and washes is not increased by new development. That's what we do now, but again, this is to support us continuing to do that. Also says continue to implement needed drainage improvements identified in the recent studies, like I referred to, and coordinate with the Yavapai County Flood Control District and other neighboring jurisdictions to cooperatively address regional flooding problems.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Gaylor, did you have questions for staff?
Yeah, thanks. I have a couple of questions, but I'm not sure I really want to spend time on them right now. The one thing that I was curious about, though, had to do with, well, the issue of annexation. Yeah, obviously, a close relationship to the growth areas element. The only place I see it addressed is there's a statement. It's a very general statement about what areas would be considered. There's no specific areas, just those that won't, cost the city money. One of the things, and we'd mentioned this just briefly a few minutes ago, having to do with the that bypass issue at the 260 and 89A. There's an opportunity there, sort of in concept, for a bypass at that intersection. I'm just wondering, should we be encouraging the annexation of that area? Or is that, not something we do as part of a document like this? It seems to me a land use issue. Is that something the city council would just, delve into on their own, or should we be urging that or encouraging that? I mean, if we're citing it as a need, shouldn't we be pushing it?
It's a good question. I'm not sure that we would need to go beyond the general statement we're making here as to when an area is proposed for annexation, at that time and that place, and that particular staff and council and planning commission can make that decision.
Yeah.
We really haven't identified possible annexation areas other than perhaps that that big 10 square mile area up to the east that's state land. I think the idea here is that given the growth projections, that 1,600 by 2040 growth, we should be able to accommodate that with infill development. And if not, then there are other areas like the 89 and Vine, like the West Mingus area that are, and those other growth areas that are identified within the city limits right now that are available for that. So I'm not sure there. That's why we didn't put a lot of focus on, we need to annex this area, we need to annex this area, because we really don't need to annex those areas.
Okay.
And a lot of those areas are already developed, and a lot of those areas may not have sewer issues like that.
So by describing that little bypass, we're not necessarily pushing annexation.
No,
we could accomplish it without doing
by
that.
describing that by describing that bypass, we are recognizing that that would be very much a multi-jurisdictional effort.
That's the only real question I have at the moment.
Sorry. My only question is regarding that 1,600 projection. And what I'm wondering is, does the city have any plans to run future studies on that? Because I understand that these projections can change with changing variables. And I know that we can't necessarily incorporate that into the 2024 plan, but at the same time, this is a living document. So do you have an estimation for when you would have another study done? Would it be in a year, 2 years, 5 years?
Well, this projection is based on the state demographer that updates their projections every year. So we do have updated numbers that we can go by every year, and if things change drastically, there is always the possibility to come back and change the general plan even before the 10-year major update is required. So there is that potential. I don't know that the city does its own projections on.
My mistake. I thought that they were related to the housing study. I apologize.
Well, the housing study was a little more specific than that, a little more specialized than that, and it talked about the need Verde Valley wide regionally for housing, and that need probably is larger than the actual
1,600.
projection here, because the projection from the demographer would be, like the name says, it's projecting the trends that have happened so far. Now, are those trends going to be the same? Are they accurately predicting those trends? Who knows? It's probably going to be, if past experience is repeated, it's probably going to be ups and downs with the economy. But overall, they're projecting an average. This is going to be about the average growth over 20, 30, 40 years.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Davis. At this point, we are going to invite public comment. If anyone is here from the public who has questions or comments regarding the general plan draft specifically, we will have an open call to the public about items not on the agenda later in the meeting. Please come forward. I do have one person who's requested to speak. Joy Mosley. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. Please introduce yourself for the record anyway.
Yes, I am Joy Mosley, Madam Chair, Commission members. I was here last month in commenting on the general growth plan and private streets. I have had experience as an HOA board member with private streets and the burden that they become on homeowners. I had a wonderful conversation with Gary, who gave me a better understanding of why private streets have been included in the growth plan. And Again, I just am asking the commission to give thought to the future of those communities where private streets have planned to be constructed. Those streets age, the people who own those homes age, and the burden becomes a little more than the homeowners are even willing to experience sometimes. When I said, just to say private street raises the hair on the back of my neck. It's that, it's that awesome. So thank you for giving me this time and your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else here who would like to speak on the general plan? Hi, I see a hand.
I gave you my card.
Oh, you did? Are you Anna McCary? Yes. All right, please come forward and introduce yourself for the record.
Madam Chairman, thank you. I'm Anna Mae Corey. I live in Cottonwood. And regarding the general plan, it's under the transportation and the safety, in that I'm encouraged and happy to see many different roads that are going to be taking traffic off of 260 or traffic off of 89A, because we are having a bottleneck, and we all know what happened in Sedona when you don't plan ahead to have tributaries that can take you off. So I'm really glad to see that, and I encourage continuing to move the traffic off. Specifically, I want to talk about safety on 89A between Chase Bank and 260 and 89A. That particular corridor, I would like to see a red light. And I've been talking about a red light for 6 years now, going to the ADOT and to the city and to the engineers and the road. And I've been given the runaround. ADOT says, we need that's on the city, and the city puts it off on ADOT, and it would go back and forth and back and forth. Now, the red light I'm talking about is at the corner of Camino Real and 89A, where they put a right turn only, which makes no sense to me at that point. But anyway, regarding the back and forth between ADOT and the city, turns out that ADOT told me last year that the city has to approve a red light because of to agree to pay part of the cost of putting in a red light. So that's why they say Cottonwood needs permission. They need to work together instead of saying it's the other one, it's the other one. Okay. Between Chase Bank, there are 19 cutouts of roads that can go out into 89A and can make a left or a right-hand turn. The problem with Camino Real is once they decided to make it right turn only, all the Verde Village that come down Camino Real now cut through the subdivisions to go over to 12th Street. They cut over to a 260, which increases the bottleneck. So you're increasing a bottleneck because you don't allow a left-hand turn from Camino Real. And that's my point today. I'd like to see discussion about that between the city and ADOT, because responsibility, I'm told, is both of you. All the subdivisions that you're talking about, the increased population, it's all going to put more traffic coming. To have 19 cutouts, they can make right or left. It makes no sense to me not to have a red light. And I had another point, but I think that's really what I want to say. And I thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. Glad to have that in the record. I do not have any other forms filled out. Oh, I saw something in the air. Please hand your form off to Mr. Davis and introduce yourself for the record. Oh. Hello.
Good evening. My name is Andy Grossetta. I reside at 625 Mount Mingus Road here in Cottonwood. First of all, I would like to thank Scott Ellis and Gary Davis for reaching out to the community. They've done an excellent job, not only to organizations, but also to private property owners. And they really, I want you to know that they've done an excellent job doing that. They've listened to our input and tried to incorporate most of our input in the amendments that Gary has outlined to you. So I want to thank staff for really doing a good job of drilling down and working with the property owners in the community. The second thing that I'd like to share with you is the Western Loop, and this goes back to the circulation plan. The lady just spoke before me. We need to improve the circulation in this town. We all know what the issues are at 260 and 89A. We've talked about the cutoff there before you get to 89A and connect on 89A before you get to the Verde River Bridge. That helps for the people that are going to Sedona, but it doesn't help most of us going the other direction, which is through town, if you're going from point A to point B for a business here in town. I've shared this with staff before, and I think maybe also with you at a prior meeting. The Yavapai County did a study back around 2000. The Dava and Associates out of Prescott did a study just to look at transportation circulation issues here in the Verde Valley. And one of the things that came out of that was this Western Loop, outer loop, and that basically starts down at Ogden Ranch Road, runs over to Quail Springs Road, and then jumps across through the Prescott National Forest onto some private holdings, and then would come out at Mingus Avenue. Now, 23 years ago, that was proposed to go all the way to the Highway 89A, going up to Jerome, if you know where the #1 food store is, and the water tank there. If you get your hands on that study, it was proposed to go all the way through and provide relief to the bypass and 89 through Old Town Clarkdale and Cottonwood. Well, over the period of time, we all know what happened. Development happens, lots get split off, and there's more and more houses, which is okay. And so what we're proposing now is to start at Mingus Avenue, West Mingus Avenue, and run that road south. If you know where Mesquite Hills is, a new subdivision that they're building there, in that area, and run directly south and through private lands, and then you would get on the Prescott National Forest, and you would run on the Prescott National Forest to Quail Springs Road. And then you would, once you got to Quail Springs Road, really the issue's over with, because that road is already established, it's paved, and you can get on Ogden Ranch Road. So I would encourage that the city really step up and commence a study on that. And it's a multi-jurisdictional study, as Gary said, but I think that would do a lot to reduce the congestion.
Thank you very much. I apologize. The timer just went off for 3
I'm sorry.
minutes.
So that's all I want to say. I want to say thank you to staff, but circulation transportation is big, and I think that study needs to happen as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Your comments are appreciated. Are there any further comments or questions from the public regarding the general plan? I'm looking for hands. All right, I am not seeing any further hands raised, so I am closing the floor to the public at this time. I am, at this time, giving the commissioners the opportunity to ask any further or final questions of staff or anyone here representing the city. All right, yes, Commissioner Gaylor?
Thanks. I may have raised this before. You outlined a couple of special projects that are being recommended by the plan as a follow-up. One of them had to do with a parking study in Old Town, and we recently completed a new street diet for that area of North Main, north of Mingus. And I'm wondering if there's been any talk or discussion about a similar project or a study of the South Main corridor south of Mingus. And my reason for that is I just feel like we got a series of really nasty crosswalks down there, and it's actually a fairly high density part of the city. You know, there's a lot of residences located within walking distance of that location. Just curious.
Yes, Commissioner Gellert, there is a plan for looking at the pavement on all of Main Street from the 89A bypass all the way up through Old Town, and the 10th Street to Old Town, I believe, is the priority at this point, at least with the last discussion with council. From there on down, from south of Mingus, where the south of the where that road diet is, that is also in the works for a pavement study and repavement as well. One of the objectives here in the plan, in number 7, and this would be 7.2, is the comprehensive roadway design. This is saying when we do projects like that, we do look at those situations with crosswalks, with striping, bike lanes, look at it on a comprehensive basis, design per best practices currently. So I think that objective would cover that.
Yeah, sure. That's what I've been wondering. I haven't heard anything about that, but
Yeah, and that's one of those areas that you might recall that that the plan identifies as a hybrid area. That's not a commercial street, and it's not a highway, but it's something that's trying to be both. And part of that study could help alleviate some of the problems, like you suggested, with the crosswalk issues. How best to deal with those, keep them, change them, make that part of any study going forward.
it seems like a good opportunity down there.
For what it's worth, agreed. At this time, I'm going to give the commissioners an opportunity to make comments. So we're done with the questions portion of the general plan. If there are any comments, now is your opportunity to make them. And then after this, we're going to ask staff to read the proposed motion into the record, and then I will make that motion. Any comments? All right, I don't see any comments from my fellow commissioners, so staff, please read the proposed motion into the record.
Very good. Thank you, Madam Chairman. And get comfortable. There are 25 of them.
Yeah.
And I'm just doing this so the maker of the motion doesn't have to read all this stuff. You just have to say, as read into the record by staff.
You are appreciated.
Very good. So the motion would be to amend the general plan as draft as follows. Number 1, in objective 1.2, add a column to the land use designations table showing references to the objectives that further describe each designation. Number 2, amend objective 1.5 to read mixed use, medium and high density residential and neighborhood commercial designations. Locate multifamily residential uses and light commercial uses together in the NC land use designation to promote bicycle and foot traffic for the commercial uses, convenience for residential uses, easy access to transit, and shared parking opportunities. Neighborhood commercial uses include small-scale retail, service, restaurant, and office uses. While adequate on- or off-street parking is required, features such as highly visible parking lots and drive-through facilities are not appropriate in these designations. Locate multifamily residential uses in MR and HR designations adjacent to NC designations in areas served by transit, bicycle, and pedestrian facilities. Number 3, amend the first sentence of objective 1.6 to read, locate heavy commercial uses in high visibility highway commercial corridors in the HC land use designations away from residential areas that can be impacted by noise, dust, and emissions. Number 4, amend the land use plan map to keep the land north of Verde Village Unit 8 and west of the Cottonwood Municipal Airport, a portion of Assessor's Parcel Number 40608-005M, designated as LR, residential low density, rather than changing it to VLR. Number 5, amend the land use map to designate a parcel at the northwest corner of 6th Street and State Route 89, northeast corner of 6th Street and SR 89A, APN 406-06009V as HC Highway Commercial to reflect the existing hotel use. Number 6, amend the land use plan map to designate a parcel at the northwest corner of 6th Street and Cottonwood Street, APN 406-06005L as NC Neighborhood Commercial to reflect the existing office use and C1 zoning. Number 7, amend the land use plan map to designate a city-owned parcel on the east side of Bill Gray Road, APN 407-2319D as CF Community Facility. Number 8, amend the land use plan map to designate the lots on the east side of 15th Street between Mingus Avenue and Aspen Street, APN 406-4107, 08, 09, 10, 11A, 11B, 12, 13, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, and 26 as HR residential high density to reflect the multifamily uses permitted by the existing C1 zoning. Number 9, amend the land use map to designate the ADOT office parcel at 525 South 12th Street, APN 406-0620L as HC Highway Commercial. Number 10, amend the third sentence of Objective 2.1, Growth Areas Table, GR1, Growth Area 1, to read the portion of this growth area in the Willard Addition subdivision can be consolidated into larger, more developable parcels through abandonment of unused rights of way. Number 11, in the growth areas table in the text for GR5, add a last sentence. If roadway capacity becomes available through the addition of new connecting roadways, consider changing the land use designations to PLD to allow for planned development at higher densities. Number 12, in the growth areas table in the text for GR8, add a sentence after the second sentence. Internal local roadways will be privately owned and maintained. Number 13, amend Objective 2.1 Growth Areas Table GR9 to refer to the area as SR 89A and Cornville Road area, and to amend the third sentence to read dedication of right-of-way for the collector roadways is required, but internal local roadways behind gated entrances will be privately owned and maintained. Number 14, in the growth areas table in the text for GR11 Spring Creek Ranch Growth Area, add an eighth sentence. Any development proposals must include measures to protect water quality, vegetation, and wildlife in the Spring Creek riparian area. Number 15, in the growth areas table in the text for GR12 State Trust East Growth Area, add a third sentence. At the time of development, following annexation, provide continuous open space corridors along each side of, we'll add that in there, each side of State Route 89A, so as to maintain an attractive visual corridor and otherwise define the character of the community as balanced with the unique natural setting. Number 16, amend Objective 3.7 to read, preserve and enhance the character of established streetscapes to provide a high-quality walkable environment in Old Town with amenities such as street trees, on-street parking, sidewalk cafe space, street furniture, reduced crosswalk lengths, public restrooms, and pedestrian scale lighting and signage. Alleviate parking shortages by increasing number of spaces and improving parking management. Consider replacing the city-owned buildings at the southeast corner of Main and Pima Streets with an open street-side gathering place designed for events in daily use, with the parking area moved east and enlarged, replacing the existing Old Town Activity Park. Coordinate with Old Town business owners and residents to develop a master plan for implementing this objective in accordance with current best practices. Number 17, on the circulation plan map, remove the conceptual trail and shared use path from the large parcel between Chuckawalla Drive and West Mingus Avenue and add an asterisk indicating future trails with development. Number 18, on the circulation plan map and the open space and recreation map, add conceptual trail alignments proposed by the Prescott National Forest near the Blowout Wash, Skidmore, and Big Knotty trailheads, and a conceptual shared use path from Ogden Ranch Road to Western Drive. Number 19, in the circulation elements connectivity plan table, State Route 89A, Cornville Road connection, amend the second sentence to read, built by the developer to standards acceptable to the city and accepted as city right-of-way. It would connect the State Route 89A Belgrade Road intersection with Cornville Road at Tissau Road and/or Verde Santa Fe Parkway. Number 20, in the circulation elements connectivity plan table, State Route 89A, Cornville Road connection, amend the third sentence to read, a roundabout or signal is required in the ADOT right-of-way at the State Route 89A Bill Gray Road intersection. Number 21, add a new objective 7.75 that reads, participate in a regional study with Yavapai County, the town of Clarkdale, Prescott National Forest, Arizona State Land Department, ADOT, and any other affected agencies to evaluate potential benefits, cost, and alignment options for a connector road between Ogden Ranch Road and West Mingus Avenue. Add the conceptual road alignment to the circulation plan if all affected parties concur the road project is needed and are willing to participate in the design and construction, and renumber subsequent objectives. Number 22, amend 9.5, Objective 9.5 to read, enact and enforce dust control measures during construction and grading activity and coordinate with other jurisdictions and agencies as necessary to ensure air quality standards are met on all land uses. Make reclaimed water available for dust control use. Number 23, amend Objective 10.1 to read, protect the long-term health of the Verde River and its adjacent riparian areas by working in concert with other agencies to monitor flows and develop measures to maintain historic base flow levels. Number 24, on the open space and recreation plan map, remove the conceptual trail and shared use path from the large parcel between Chuckawalla Drive and West Mingus Avenue. Number 25, amend Objective 12.1 to add a second sentence, study ways to keep response times low, including planning for new facilities to serve growing areas. And number 26, in Objective 12.5, amend the third sentence to remove the word public before police.
Thank you very much. I move to amend the general plan draft as read into the record by staff. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Duvernay.
Yay.
Commissioner Glasscott.
Yes.
Commissioner Kling. Commissioner Gaylord.
Yes.
Chairwoman Maston.
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you very much for all your hard work. That's for all the staff. And this is still ongoing. Our next agenda item is a conditional, oh, I'm so sorry. What did I miss?
There's more.
Oh, there's more? There's always more.
Well, I just wanted to, first of all, talk about the additional amendments that we talked about earlier.
Oh, the more than 1,600.
Do we want to say more than 1,600? Do we want to talk about that gated communities objective and also that Mingus Avenue request and any other suggestions the commission might have?
Okay. To the commission, are we interested in adding additional amendments? Yes? Is that a yes? Oh, okay. It's closed for the public right now, but I do appreciate the hands. So personally, I do think that we should increase the growth projection for safety's sake, and because ultimately I know that my personal bugaboo is housing, but I feel like that 1,600 number, I think it gets an idea into our minds as a community that is a little bit less helpful in terms of housing planning than it could be. Regarding gated communities for myself, I also think that keeping the language, which discourages gated communities, is ideal. Commissioner Gaylor, thoughts?
Let me think of something.
All right. Commissioner DeVernay. Gotta hit it really hard.
I think that the 1,600 plan probably is pretty conservative, and I don't know how to establish what the right number would be, quite frankly. But with what's going on with the movement out of major cities into more rural areas and smaller towns, I think we'll see a larger growth of people than 1,600.
Thank you. Commissioner Glasscott?
I agree with all that's been said.
Thank you. Commissioner Kling, but can I request that you keep your comments sort of chunked so that they can be repeated for the folks attending? Oh, darn it. I thought I had a plan to help with that. Okay. So at this point, I am going to make a motion for an additional amendment. Would that be correct, Mr. Davis?
You can, yes.
Yeah. So I'm going to 26. You think? Okay. I'm going to make a motion to change the growth projection to 20. This is totally random, Commissioner. I think 2,600. Oh, so I'm trying to change the growth. How can I get a suggestion from staff on how we could update the language for the growth projection?
Well, Madam Chair, right now, that objective reads, ensure that a sufficient supply of land is available for an appropriate mix of residential, commercial, and industrial development to accommodate a projected net population growth of at least 1,600 people by 2040. So that does kind of cover it. It kind of puts 1,600 out the floor. You could say more than to
Okay.
kind of imply that it should be above that floor.
Can I ask you to change the language to more than, and then I will make a motion?
It says more than.
Oh, it
I
does say
can-
more than?
Well, yeah.
It just feels very conservative to me.
You could make a motion to amend the objective 1.1 to change the wording from at least 1,600 persons to more than 1,600 persons.
So it doesn't say more than yet. That's the suggestion. Yeah. So yes, I make a motion to change the language in objective 1.1 to more than 1,600. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Roll call vote.
Commissioner DuVernay,
Yes.
Commissioner Glasscott,
Yes.
Commissioner Kling, Commissioner Gaylor,
I'm just kind of in a quandary here. I'm not sure I'm understanding what you guys are doing.
Well, when you look at the last line in objective 1.1,
Sure, yeah.
right now it says at least 1,600 persons.
So that was based on a growth estimate?
That's based on
Behind
the
this.
projection by the state demographer.
Well, so it says at least 1,600.
And the change would be to more than, which is kind of saying the same thing, but kind of implying that it should be above that rather than
Yeah.
that floor.
All right.
You can vote nay if you want.
I'm okay with it. It's
That was a yay. Unanimously carried. So for the folks in the gallery, I don't normally break the fourth wall too much, but I will say in a document like this, which is not strictly law, it's more of a guideline, it's important to choose language that's indicative of what, like the way you want rules to be interpreted, the way you want policy to be interpreted, so that when people read it, they get the right idea. And sometimes it's little stuff like this, but I do think 1600 is conservative. All right, thank you, Mr. Davis. Do any of the other commissioners want to vote on any of the other potential additional amendments? I'm not seeing anybody, so we are going to call this one closed. Is there anything else?
Well, there is the matter of the final recommendation from
yes.
the Planning Commission, and that could be a motion to recommend to the council that the draft be approved, subject to the amendments made in the previous two motions.
Okay. I think that we're ready to do that at this point. Are you comfortable with it? All right. So I make a motion to recommend the draft general plan to council with
Approval of?
to recommend approval of the draft general plan to council with the amendments that were added. What day is it?
By
Madam
previous
Chair,
motion.
There is a suggested motion in your
There is a suggested
staff
motion?
report that
I
might
just
make it a
missed it
little
under
easier.
the big 26 thing? Thank you. I haven't had to make up my own motion since I was a vice chair.
It's the one that says for final recommendation, towards the middle of the first page. Of the staff report.
Is on the first page of the report. So after all the comments?
It's before, if you have the PDF open, it's page 11 of the PDF.
Okay, thank you. I do. That's awesome. I move to recommend to the City Council approval of the updated general plan per the amendments approved in preceding motions. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Duvernay,
Yes.
Commissioner Glasscock,
Yes.
Commissioner Kling, Commissioner Gaylor,
Yes.
Chairwoman Maston.
Yes. Unanimously carried. We recommended that to council. Now, our next agenda item is a conditional use permit request for a grandmother quarters.
Uh-oh. We may need to take a little break here to get my new presentation up.
Okay.
Clover's the one who's good at sharing.
Let's see what's
Thank you for sharing.
We're back on.
We're back on. Thank you.
Conditional use permit, 23-009.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Gary Davis with Community Development. This is a conditional use permit for a guest
Could
house.
the gallery please keep it down? We are going as fast as we can.
The request is for a conditional use permit approval for a guest house in an R1 zone. This is single-family residential zone. Considering both the staff recommended findings of fact and staff recommended stipulations. Existing zoning is R1, single-family residential. The size of the lot is about 1.5 acres. The proposed building is 320 square feet in size. A guest house requires a conditional use permit in an R1 zone and with a minimum property size of 15,000 square feet. This one meets that easily because it's about 1.5 acres. The guest house is already on site. It was placed on site without permits. They're working with staff to achieve compliance, and so far there's no certificate of occupancy on that. Building permit is pending. We need engineering plans and the conditional use permit approval in order to move forward with that. The properties to the north, south, and east are vacant, and this is at the top of a ridge, and the topography drops off quite a bit, so there are topographic challenges on those adjacent properties, so we don't anticipate that there would be a lot of development right up next to this. So, give you an idea of where this is located, it's east end of Organ Pipe Street, in the Verde Heights area. The purple area that you see to the east of this is the new Merkin winery and restaurant area. So this is just directly 2 parcels to the west of that. To the west is houses on the Organ Pipe Street dead-end road, and to the north is the older area of Old Town down the hill. This is a site plan of the lot, kind of an L-shaped lot at the end of Organ Pipe Street. Organ Pipe Street dead ends into this lot. There's an existing house and a storage building at the end of the street, and the proposed home, which is made of a shipping container, is located to the east of the existing house. Basic designs for the plan are shown here. It's cut out of a shipping container. It would be required to meet all current building and fire codes before we can issue a certificate of occupancy on it. This shows how windows have been added. So this is a view into the property from the end of Organ Pipe Street, looking directly to the northeast. Off the main house is on the right. There's a storage house on the left, or a storage building on the left. The unit we're talking about is existing back here behind this tree. We'll get in a little closer. It's closer out to the edge of the property. So there is the container building as placed so far. Another view of it, looking back towards the west and looking from the property. And this is the view from the unit, looking over onto the new Merkin property, looking east. Looking north from the site, you can see that there's a ravine immediately to the north, and I think those are the Kindra Heights homes you can see on the horizon there. Going backwards on Organ Pipe Street, to the left is another house, is the adjacent house to the west, closest house to this property. This is the road, Organ Pipe Street. This is looking back towards Mingus Mountain to the west. We did have a comment called in objecting to this proposal from a neighboring property owner concerned with increased traffic to the property which may further damage the road. You can see it's a pretty small road with, looks like chip seal on it. So in order to approve a conditional use permit, Planning Commission has to make 3 findings. One is that the proposal is not detrimental to the health, safety, or welfare of the surrounding properties. The property exceeds the 15,000 square foot requirement. It's not adjacent to, the proposed use is not adjacent to any existing residential on the east. R1 allows up to 5 dwelling units per acre, and again, this would be 1 dwelling unit plus a guest house on the 1.5 acres. The guest house is subject to rules in the zoning ordinance that says it has to be used by a family member. It can't be rented out separately as a separate unit. It can't have its own driveway. It can't have its own electric service. It can't have its own address. Basically, it's an extension of the house that could be used for a family member. So this would fit that requirement for a guest house. And the parcel is 1.5 acres. The second required finding is that the use is compatible with surrounding uses in respect to intensity, times of use, scale of buildings, anticipated traffic, parking requirements. Again, the northeast and south parcels are vacant and have the topographical issues. There is a single-family residence to the west and several down the street to the west on Oregon Pipe. The guest house is smaller and to the rear of the primary residence, as is required for a guest house. And the proposed use is for a family member dwelling, as mentioned in the letter of intent that was enclosed. So that one property owner mentioned concern about traffic on the road, also was concerned about possible effect on property values. Those were the 2 issues that they brought up. Other than that, we've had no other public comments. The third finding is that the proposed use shall have adequate access to public streets, carry the type and quantity of traffic which may be generated by the subject use. Oregon Pipe Street terminates at the property line. Oregon Pipe Street is a public street. It's a public right-of-way, so it does have access to public streets, and it is connected with State Route 89A and North Main Street via Oregon Pipe. Also, the parking requirement for the single-family guest plus the guest house is 3 spaces. There appears to be well enough, plenty of room for that. And with the guest house use, with a family member using it, generally we wouldn't expect a significant increase in traffic on that. So we're proposing stipulations. Staff proposed stipulations, and again, need to read this into the record. So number 1, the project shall be developed in conformance with the development plans as reviewed by the Planning and Zoning Commission at the December 18th, 2023 meeting. Number 2, the project shall conform to the Code Review Board comment letter dated October 18th, 2023. Number 3, the project shall comply with all applicable sections of the zoning ordinance, including but not limited to R1 property development standards, general provisions, parking and loading requirements, and outdoor lighting code. Number 4, a certificate of occupancy must be issued within 6 months of conditional use permit approval. If this requirement is not met per section 302G4C of the zoning ordinance, the applicant must receive Planning and Zoning Commission approval for a time extension, or the conditional use permit will be subject to the revocation process. And that concludes the presentation. I'm not sure if the applicant is in the audience, but the applicant, if they are here, might be able to answer any questions you might have about the particular use they're proposing.
Thank you very much. At this time, I am going to invite the commissioners to ask questions of staff, to clarify anything. Is the applicant here? Hi. All right. And of the applicant, if necessary. Commissioner Gaylor, do you have any questions for staff or the applicant?
I do. Do we have, I have no issue at all with the additional unit on the property. They've got an acre and a half, and we need housing. Do we have architectural design standards for guest homes? Are they not supposed to resemble the primary residence?
Commissioner Gellert, they are not, we don't have a requirement like that. The only requirement that we have is that they be, I believe the term is clearly subordinate to the house, which we generally interpret to mean it's got to be to the side or behind. It's not a
As a residence?
it's not a separate residence. It's not a separate use. But I don't believe we have any particular design requirements on that. And that might be something that, going back to the general plan, as one of the objectives in there is to entertain the idea of ADUs, additional or accessory dwelling units. And if we do something like that, then that kind of design guideline is something that could be included in that to make these units compatible with the rest of the neighborhood. But as of now, no, there's no specific design criteria for
That's
guest
not been a
houses.
requirement for somebody who's doing a guest home.
It has not.
Okay. I know that even in Old Town, where they had replaced a couple of houses with mobile homes, there was a requirement for gabling, eaves, skirting, all that jazz. But do we permit the use of the cargo container even as storage?
We have permitted them as storage, and we can permit them as residential as long as they meet all our current fire and building codes.
So we have, okay. I mean, Maynard's using them next door. I don't have that much of an issue with it, but I was afraid maybe the neighbors would. We're not hearing from them.
I've told you the comment we've gotten, it wasn't concerning the design, it was concerning maintenance of the road and concern about property values.
But this is not a temporary residence, right? It's a permanent residence? Permanent guest home?
Guest houses can be permanent.
It's not like a medical facility or something?
No, we don't have a provision for a temporary medical
Okay.
house. It has to be a permanent design, and I believe one of the requirements is going to be that it's permanently affixed to the property, to the grade.
That's all I've
Okay.
got. Thank you.
All right. Commissioner DeVernay, did you have any questions for staff or the applicant?
Yeah, staff questions. So this uses existing electric power and drain field from the house itself?
Correct. Commissioner Duvernay, one of the requirements, as I said, of a guest house is that it can't have its own separate utility hookups. It's an extension of the house effectively.
And requires fire suppression as well, like any other building?
That I am not aware of.
Yes, it does.
It does? Okay.
Is that intended to be employed into that structure?
That's something we would check for during the permitting process.
Correct.
Okay. And a permanent foundation, or is it allowed to be on pads?
My understanding is a permanent foundation will be required.
Yes.
It will be. So those will be met before the permits are issued?
Yeah, before a certificate of occupancy and a building permit. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Glasscott, any questions for the applicant or staff? All right, that's a no. Commissioner Kling, any questions? Thank you. I don't have any questions at this time. Thank you very much. Is there anyone here from the public who would like to speak for or against this project? Oh. After. If you haven't filled out a form, please fill one out.
Where would those forms be?
They're right in the back by the door, or they should be. Is there just one person looking to make a comment? I can't see through the podium. There are two. If you're planning on making a comment, please fill out the form so we have it ready ahead of time. While this goes on, I'm going to reorder things, take advantage of the lull. Could the applicant come forward, please? Hi.
Hi there.
Could you just explain really briefly the intent and purpose of this structure for the commission?
Sure. My name is Gretchen Westbrock, and this guest house is intended. I have an aging mother who lives in the community. She just turned 79 years old, and the house that I live in has lots of stairs in it, so not conducive for her to be in as she ages, and this would allow for private space while me still being able to do what I moved here to be able to do, and that is help my family.
Thank you very much. Now, the commission earlier indicated they didn't have further questions. Is that still true? All right. Thank you very much. And then it looks like I have the first public comment behind you.
No, I'm her contractor.
Oh, okay.
For technical questions.
You're Mr. Driscoll.
Yes.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Please introduce yourself into the record verbally.
My name is Sally Glenn, and I live just down the street at 720 North Oregon Pike. This business as a guest house has come up as a bit of a surprise, as this house was permitted use for short-term B&B. That short-term B&B went through for a couple that owned the house previously, Mrs. Middleton. When Westbrooks moved into the house later after Middleton's left, that B&B became apartments in the basement, which are currently rented. And now we're going to have a guest house, which is not a structured building, a shipping container. There is a previous covenant in our area. We had one house across the street, which wasn't a structured building. It was a trailer home, which has been torn down. And in the covenant prior, we allow no trailers there. I should also tell you that I have lived in this neighborhood since May of 1992. I've seen all these houses come, go, residents in, out, sold. The trailer home is gone. It cannot be replaced with a trailer, and no trailers in the area are allowed on any of the property. Now, I know a container isn't a trailer. I think personally it's worse. I also think that being a single-family neighborhood, single-family neighborhoods are not permitted to rent part of their home for monetary reasons. Now, she's saying that her mother is moving in. Well, that's fine. But what about the other residents, people that are already renting homes in her basement? I really hate to do this to my neighborhood. It's always been a really great neighborhood. We've always, everybody gotten along and everything. But the structure of the neighborhood is changing at the end. So my objection is I don't want a container in my neighborhood. Sorry. Thank you.
Just ran out of time.
Okay, I'm done. Anyway, I object.
Thank you. Were there any other comments from the public regarding this project? Yes, one more? I thought so. Please introduce yourself for the record into the mic.
Hi, my name's Ron Contreras, and we live about 3 houses down from the said property. And I don't have any objection to the mother-in-law suite and shipping container so much as I have concerns about if this shipping container is allowed to be put up on this property. There's a property that my neighbor was telling you across from us that was torn down. And of course, is this going to change codes in our area to where we can be allowed to put a shipping container instead of a stick-built home on a property?
Staff, that's a question for you, I believe.
Madam Chair, the codes allow for, in a single-family residential area, it does allow for a factory-built building or modular-type building, just about anything except for a manufactured home. I can't really say one way or another if a shipping container would absolutely be allowed or absolutely be prohibited. It would depend on the circumstances, how it was constructed, if it met all the codes for a single-family residential. So we'd have to look at it in that sense. But it wouldn't necessarily just outright allow anybody to start putting shipping containers on any property to do what they please with.
Would I be correct in saying that anyone who wanted to propose something like that would need to go through then this process, the conditional use permit process?
Not necessarily if it was considered a primary residence in an R1 zone.
Mm-hmm. But it would have to then fulfill all the other building codes.
Correct.
Thank you very much. Did you have any further comments?
Other than that, just like they mentioned earlier, our streets are in disrepair, and they do need to be, updated. And the increased traffic flow is going to, further damage our streets in the area.
Okay.
So that's just another concern that I had.
Thank you very much for sharing your concerns and coming out tonight. Is there anyone else from the public who wanted to speak on this project? All right, I'm not seeing anybody raise their hands. I'm going to close the floor to the public and give the commissioners an opportunity to share their thoughts. Commissioner Gaylord, thoughts on this?
Well, I mentioned I don't have any issue with an additional unit out there. And, the use as the grandmother's quarters or whatever. Mm-hmm. That's fine. If there's concern about renting the thing outright, it's a conditional use permit. Can we stipulate that's what it's used for?
Commissioner Gaylord, the guest house requirements say that it can't be rented as a separate unit.
How about an Airbnb?
There's some ambiguity on the question of a short-term rental because the city technically can't prohibit use that Airbnb short-term rental type of use. I don't know to what extent legally the commission could place a stipulation prohibiting that in this case or any case. I don't know if our legal counsel has an opinion on that one way or the other, but that's kind of a gray area as far as we know.
And these,
Wait a minute.
sorry. Oh, I'm sorry.
Can you just repeat the, yeah.
I can hear you. So I can do it.
Frank Cassidy, our counsel, says the commission can put a stipulation on it to that effect, prohibiting short-term rental, but the guest house rules already limit it to family members. So apparently that is something that we can enforce.
All right. So if I understand that correctly, it already, because of the family member limitation, doesn't need to have an additional stipulation added.
That's our understanding,
Okay.
yes.
Commissioner DeVernay, thoughts on this?
What are the questions?
Commissioner Glasgow, thoughts on this?
Yeah, just to clarify that it will be permanent and it's going to have its own plumbing, electric, just like the house?
That would be the idea. Again, the applicant and the contractor are here if you want more details on that.
It would all the utilities would be run off the same meters.
Thank you.
Commissioner Kling, final comments? Okay. Can staff please summarize that for the people
Yes,
who are here?
Commissioner Kling respects the comments from the surrounding property owners. Her concern is about future property owners as to whether they would adhere to that. But again, that requirement is in our zoning ordinance, so it would apply to future owners as well as the current owners to say if this is a guest house, then it has to meet these standards.
All right. Thank you very much. My comments on this are that I think given the use, this is actually a good fit. It's a relatively large lot. I understand the citizen concerns about the shipping container. And in fact, my architectural understanding is that once the walls of the shipping container are cut into, it loses some of its structural integrity. So it would need to be retrofitted. And I believe that that is the plan. Plus, just to get it up to permit, to put it on a permanent foundation, it would have to be brought to code and updated. So I think at that point, it will look like a more acceptable structure to the neighbors. Regarding the traffic, my thought is that given this use, we're not going to see a traffic increase because an elderly family member is likely not driving. And for better or worse, we can only look at the individual projects that are put before us. So we can't be looking at any other projects that have happened in the past. We just have to take this one on its merit. And given our terrible need for housing, I'm inclined to say that this is a really good use of an ADU. With that, are there any further comments? Yes?
I just want to, would you remind me, why do they need a use permit for this? They have the acreage.
The R1 zone
It says use permit.
does not allow guest houses outright. It requires a use permit, and it allows use permits to be applied for only if the lot area is over 15,000 square feet.
And so they need a use permit. And through the use permit process, you can stipulate different things. The R1 zone is the most restrictive zoning or district, residential district. I'm just wondering, shouldn't we be requiring something more in the way of architecture? Is there anything else they can do to it to make it look a little more residential? Within reason.
Single-family houses, single-family properties are not subject to design review.
No, but this is a use permit.
Right. It could be a stipulation that you place on a conditional use permit. I'm not sure how that would be worded in order to put some sort of standard on that. It's it's in the eye of the beholder. It's hard to put a stipulation on and say make it look better.
Yeah, I guess I'd be interested to know what the other commissioners, how they feel about the architecture issue.
Personally, I tend to lean more modernist, and I came up in architecture school where shipping containers were very vogue. I think that there are ways to make them look good and in keeping with the neighborhood. I think a lot of it has to do with like additional cladding, especially because that's what people are most impacted by in terms of the neighborhood. But I think just putting it on a permanent foundation is going to make an enormous difference, if we're being honest. I think that probably putting it in on a permanent foundation will be the most important change visually. It will make it not look like a trailer. That's just obviously my opinion. I'm one commissioner. Thoughts from the other commissioners? No? All right. I am comfortable making a motion for this at this time. Are you comfortable with the stipulations as they are?
Yeah, is the staff recommending approval?
Generally, we don't recommend approval. We just put the facts in front of you and say, here are some stipulations that we're suggesting. Leave the recommending to the commission.
Yeah.
Okay.
So at this point, I just kind of leave it to a vote. All right, the stipulations are already read into the record, so I am going to move to approve CUP 23-009 to allow a guest house in an R1 single-family residential zone with regard to staff recommended findings of fact and subject to the stipulations that staff has read into the record. Roll call vote, please. Oh, and a second, please. I just assumed.
I second.
Thank you. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Duvernay,
Yes, I approve.
Commissioner Glasscock,
Approve.
Commissioner Kling, Commissioner Gaylor,
Yeah.
Chairwoman Maston.
I approve. Motion carries. We are now moving on to our next project. We have a related design review and conditional use permit request for the same project. We'll view the presentation and then vote on these as two separate motions.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. This is project to be called the San Cipriano Apartments Phase 2. You might recall a couple of years ago, we had the original Phase 1 directly across the street on Cherry near 12th, and that was for 44 units. This is an additional 8 units across the street at southwest corner of Cherry and 14th Street. The request is for 8 units, which would include a business office as well, management office. Both the request, as you say, for design review and for conditional use permit that will be decided upon by separate motions. The zoning is C2, which requires a conditional use permit for multifamily housing. It's not allowed outright like it is in C1. The site is about half an acre in size. Again, it's associated with the previously approved San Cipriano Apartments across the street. This would consist of two fourplex buildings with one attached office attached to one of those buildings, and it would include 17 parking spaces, 8 of which would be garages, 9 of which would be exterior. The location of this is, again, southwest corner of 14th Street and Cherry Street. Surrounding uses, this is no longer a vacant lot to the south. This is the Unisource office that was just put in. There's a meeting hall use to the west and other commercial uses to the west on Cherry Street. To the north is the rectangular property that you'll recall was the original San Cipriano project. To the east is offices, and to the northeast is offices as well. This is a site plan. This is rotated so that north is to the right. So Cherry Street is running on the short side of the property. 14th Street is running on the long dimension of the property. There's an existing sidewalk that was built in conjunction with the Unisource building. And there's proposed, this project would propose continuing that sidewalk around the corner onto Cherry Street. 2 buildings are proposed here, 2 fourplexes, and then the north fourplex would also include a management office as well. You see the exterior spaces as well, and the garages would be in the first floor of these structures. The purple space denotes an ADA space, and the green spaces would be compact spaces due to the tight nature of their location. This is the landscaping plan. They're proposing the required 10-foot landscape yard along the 14th Street side and a little more than 10 feet, about 11 and a half feet between the sidewalk and the walls here. And the landscape yard is measured from the back of the sidewalk regardless of the lot location. Trees shown meet our landscaping requirements. The applicant has also done some turning studies to make sure that cars can make it in there, and even at the lower left here, a emergency vehicle can go in and make a hammerhead type of turnaround in the parking lot as well. These are some elevations, what the buildings would look like. This, I believe, may be the original San Cipriano project. I'm not sure. The applicant might be able to enlighten us on that. This is what's proposed here, something very similar. Two buildings, a fourplex building on the south, and then a fourplex plus the office building on the north. And this is a rendering of what the south fourplex building would look like. We do have materials shown here. It was in your packet. We also have the actual really interested in looking at asphalt shingles. There they are.
You can leave them over there.
No takers on the shingle? Oh, there we go. Okay, good. Some views of the property. This is looking southwest at the property. You can see the existing sidewalk going back to the Unisource building to the south. To the west, the applicant proposes continuing that sidewalk as required. This is looking west into the property, looking north into the property towards Cherry Street. This is the existing property, existing use to the west. It's a club, a meeting place. This is looking farther west on Cherry Street. To the right is where the Phase 1 has been approved, Phase 1 apartments. And again, another view of that looking to the north. Looking east on Cherry Street, you see the existing office buildings. Again, right across from the corner of Cherry and 14th Street, again, office buildings. And to the south, another view looking south towards the new Unisource building. Design review stipulations. Staff proposes these, and I'll again read these into the record. Number one, the project shall be developed in conformance with the development plans as reviewed by the Planning and Zoning Commission at the December 18th, 2023 meeting. Number two, the project shall conform to the Code Review Board comment letter dated October 12th, 2023 in Re CRB 23051. Number three, the project shall comply with all applicable sections of the zoning ordinance, including but not limited to R3 property development standards, general provisions, signs, parking and loading requirements, landscaping requirements, and outdoor lighting code. And number four, a building permit application must be submitted within 24 months of design review approval. If this requirement is not met, this design review approval shall be revoked and a new code review and design review submittal will be required. Moving on to the conditional use. Again, conditional use is required for this type of use in a C2 zone, the heavy commercial zone. So findings are required. Again, the design and size and location shall not be detrimental to the health, safety, or welfare of the surrounding properties. This development would be required to be subject to the R3 development standards. The apartments have already been approved across Cherry Street, existing multifamily further north approved in the San Cipriano project. And there's a meeting space to the west, Unisource office to the south, and county offices to the east. The second finding, that use shall be compatible with surrounding uses. Again, C1 zoning is to the north with multifamily uses existing and approved. C2 zoning is to the south, east, and west. Unisource has secondary warehousing operations in the C2 zone, and the site plan adheres to the R3 development standards and the parking and the landscaping. And the applicant, again, proposes a 6-foot sidewalk along Cherry Street, connecting with the existing sidewalks. And the third required finding is that the proposed use shall have adequate access to public streets. There is two-way access onto 14th Street, one access point directly onto the public street. There's access to South Main and State Route 89A from those streets. Simulations were provided, as I showed, for emergency vehicle turnaround and SUV turnaround, and the proposed 2 compact spaces on the north and southmost parking spaces. That concludes our presentation. Happy to answer questions. I believe the applicant is in the audience to answer any specific questions about the design or the use.
Thank you very much. Commissioners, do any of you have questions for staff? We will ask the applicant in just a second to come forward.
Yeah, my computer battery died, so I can't read where it was, but there were 2 places where it said there were going to be a 2-bedroom, and then there was another place where it was saying it was a 3-bedroom. So there's contradicting bedroom.
Commissioner, I'll let the applicant go into the details on the proposed use.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. If the applicant could come forward. Oh, I'm so sorry.
There's 8 units?
Yes.
What's the parking requirement?
The parking requirement, according to Tina, who wrote the staff report, who's not able to be here tonight, is 17 total. And this meets that with 8 in the garages and 9 outside.
Well, they have garages.
Yeah.
Are there, the apartments, there's upstairs and downstairs?
I believe so, yeah. Again, the applicant can talk about the floor plan.
I just wondered where the stairs were.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr. Davis. If the applicant could come forward, please, and introduce yourself for the record.
Thank you, Commissioners. My name is Warner Meyer, and beside me is Jackson Meyer. To the question about the floor plans, they're all 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath, upstairs and downstairs. They'll each have an attached direct access garage and a backyard.
Commissioner Gaylor, did your question?
They're all 3-bedroom?
Yes, sir.
Total parking requirement 17? I counted 8 on the site plan, and you got how many garages?
There's 9 surface and 8 garage parking spaces.
Okay. And there's no outside stairs, right?
On-site stairs, no.
Okay. I think that's probably all I'm going to have.
Yes, go ahead.
I just have one other question regarding, since it's 3 bedrooms, you have 1 trash receptacle. Is that going to be enough trash for 3-bedroom, 8?
Yeah, in our experience, a 4-yard dumpster picked up twice a week is more than adequate.
Thank you.
Commissioner DeVernay?
What is the square footage of the units?
The livable square footage is 1,300 square feet plus the garage.
1,300. Thank you.
Does Commissioner Kling have any questions? No questions. I don't have any questions for you at this time. Is there anything that you would like to convey to the commission while you're at the podium?
Again, this is ancillary to the Phase 1 project approved across the street a couple years ago. Building plans were submitted and approved. Permits haven't been approved yet, or haven't been pulled yet because of the lending conditions in the market, but we expect that'll happen in 2024.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you.
I'm going to open the floor to the public. Is there anyone here from the public who would like to speak for or against this project? I am not seeing anybody come forward. If you're behind the podium, wave your hands. All right, I don't see anyone, so I'm going to close the floor to the public. We are now going to go through and give each commissioner an opportunity to share their thoughts on the design review portion of the project. Mr. Davis. Okay. On the design review portion of the project, Commissioner Gaylord.
Yeah, that was a good point about the dumpster. Where is it? I can't find it on the site plan.
Hang on.
Is this on the street?
No.
It's on the south end
Corner.
of the lot.
Is this screened?
It would have to be screened, yes.
Okay.
Oh, it's just right there. Okay.
I think that's it.
All right. Design review comments from Commissioner Kling. Okay. Design review comments from Commissioner Glasscott. Design review comments from Commissioner DeVernay.
I see no issues with it. It's very similar construction to their existing, and it complies with all the standards and requirements of the city. I don't see any issues with it at all.
Thank you very much. I echo Commissioner DeVernay's comments. I think that this is really good infill, especially considering that we previously approved the other part of the project. And it's nice seeing this particular part of the city become more mixed use. So getting some more of our housing in and the addition of the sidewalk is especially exciting for me. I'm going to become Captain Sidewalks. All right, so having said that, let me just grab the design review motion. Hang on. Oh, thank you very much. I move to approve DR-23-013 for an 8-unit apartment complex in the C2 heavy commercial zone, subject to the stipulations that staff has read into the record. Do I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner DuVernay.
Approve.
Commissioner Glasscott.
Approve.
Commissioner Kling.
That was
Commissioner Gaylord.
Approve.
Chairwoman Maston.
approve. Motion carries. And now we have to vote on the CUP. I move to approve CUP-23-010 to allow multifamily residential in a C2 heavy commercial zone with regard to the findings of fact and subject to the stipulations that staff has read into the record. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner DuVernay.
Approve.
Commissioner Glasscott.
Approved.
Commissioner Kling. Commissioner Gaylord.
Approve.
Chairwoman Maston.
Approve. Motion carries. Congratulations. I look forward to seeing more multifamily housing. Love the townhome vibe. All right. Next order is call to the public. Anyone from the public who would like to address the commission on any planning and zoning related item not on the agenda tonight should come forward now. I already have one form. If you haven't filled out a form, please do so. Speakers must address the chair and will be granted up to 3 minutes each. And as a reminder, the commission members may not respond to or answer questions from individual speakers and call to the public. Hello.
Hi, my name is Christina Detchen, and I'm Vice Chair of the Historic Preservation Committee.
Welcome.
And hello. At our last meeting, we had a discussion about downtown parking. With the increased hotels in the area, we need more parking. And I've been talking to a lot of merchants downtown, and we've had petitions about what the sentiment is about that. And so I just wanted to share with people what we came up with. So it says, we wrote something. We, the people of Cottonwood, advocate for the preservation of Old Town Historic Activity Park behind the clubhouse and not turn it into a big, hot, ugly parking lot. With a growing population and new hotels being built, we will need this open space for community events and gatherings. Maybe it can be developed into a beautiful green space plaza in the future. In fact, one of the goals is to develop parks and outdoor events. This space has a local historic gathering place for concerts, little leagues, markets, and other events for decades. So it's a very historical place and is a beloved part of the old town's history. Other towns like Clarkdale and Prescott already have central green spaces that are the heart of the community. And our underutilized park should be part of our revitalized Old Town. There is an abundance of underutilized parking lots on Cactus Street and First Street for parking. We don't need to lose our beautiful future recreational space for inappropriate parking lot. And I've got one page of signatures and then another page of signatures. Most of the signatures are the merchants. I have never met a merchant who wants to have that park, the park removed for parking lots. So that's the sentiment.
Thank you very much. Much appreciated. Next person coming forward for call of the public?
Yeah.
And have you turned in a form?
No, I didn't.
He's with me.
I was with
Yes?
her. But I just wanted to emphasize that as a
We can do it
long-term
after.
resident, right. I'll do that when I'm done. All right. It's a long-standing part of our community, and that turning it into a parking lot would just diminish the character of our old town into just another business district.
Thank you very much,
All
sir.
right.
Could you please state your name for the record?
Yes, I'm John Peterkin, otherwise known as Old Town Dave. But
Thank you very much.
all right, thank you.
And if you could fill that out when you
Yes,
sit
I will
down,
do
it would be
that.
much appreciated. I have a form here from Dr. Sina, I believe. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yes. Please introduce yourself for the record.
Good evening. I'm Dr. Shada Sina, respectfully. As you know, last week we had a community meeting with ADEQ where they admitted they have not handled overseeing MRI's permitting and monitoring reprocessing of the slag pile in an appropriate manner. This is concerning to our citizens. There has not been governmental testing of air, fugitive dust, since MRI built and began processing the mining waste in the center of our town. There are no acceptable limits on exposure to respiratory mining waste long-term to a community, only ambient air. Section 302 of the conditional use permit issued by this commission requires permit applies cannot conduct in a manner that is detrimental to health, safety, or general welfare of the public. ADEQ's speaker, when I asked him after the meeting, shared they currently do not have air quality equipment. And this process will take weeks to get some. Also, 2 air quality units set up by the VFW and Kids Park is inadequate because it does not take into consideration wind in other direction. A request to test fugitive dust is being made through DHS tomorrow. However, this is not set up as of yet. We as a community request the commission set up with authority and stop blasting and processing toxic waste till proper testing can be set up. This is a reasonable request. Thank you for your assistance.
Thank you very much. We appreciate you speaking.
Yeah.
Is there anyone else here for call to the public this evening? I see a couple other faces who haven't spoken yet. All right, no one else is coming forward, so I am closing call to the public. We do not have any discussion items on the agenda this evening, so I'm going to make a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second? Second. All right, all in favor? Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.